Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Welcome to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services here in the hot town of Eastland, Texas. Yes, it is May 20th of 2024 today, and we're going to reach 92 degrees. It is getting in the 90s, and I'm going to tell you what, we need some rain because our tanks and lakes aren't full, but it's pretty humid. So yeah, we're definitely getting where we're named for with our heat. But anywho, we're not here to talk about heat. We're here to talk about college, education, savings. What vehicle should you use? And really, is it college, education, savings? I'm not sure. You know, things are changing. Times are changing. You know, it reminds me of when I was a kid. So we had a class that we did where we got to do these cool projects. And one time we were supposed to come up with this invention, and this other kid brought in this invention, and his invention was simply a bell, like a silver bell that you ring. You know, you actually tap when you go up to a counter. And everybody's like, what is this for? And he said, this is a remote control. And if you remember back in the day, so we had TVs, right? That your dad would call you in there and you'd actually have to go change the channel physically on the TV. And I remember, you know, remote control, getting one was a huge deal. Before that, it was a bell, right? So if you grew up in the 70s or 80s, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But oh, how things have changed. I mean, here we are on our phone. Let's just cast that to the TV. I was doing that. I was kind of actually having fun with it, just showing off to myself more so than anything that I could make it work. But we were on X the other day looking at some funny videos. So I was casting them up for everybody to see. But it's just, gosh, times, right? And I think the same could be said for college, for education. What does it look like today as opposed to 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? I mean, heck, you know, my parents didn't even go to college. And they were so proud when my brother graduated college because he was the first one in the family to graduate college. I mean, and then you think how far we are today. And today it's even questionable, should my kids go to college? Because it's seeming that maybe that's more of shifted towards more of a standardized foundational education that they may or may not need if they're going to do some specialty or trade or you know, even just need to be focused in a certain area. I mean, I look at my dad, goodness gracious, he's super successful. Obviously, we're a second generation of this business. You know, he got an education through the bank, through insurance companies, through investment companies. He's been in business since the 70s, been in our industry and learning. And our business was started in 1989. And I'll never forget when I came in, I was getting my degree in finance. I hadn't graduated yet. And I was getting my degree in finance and I started learning everything. And first thing I did was got my insurance license, and then I got my securities license, and I went back to school, and I've been in school ever since. I mean, heck, today, as I was putting together the show, I was sitting here reading and this and that and this and that. It's a totally different look on what education looks like. And I think that's really something to behold and something to really ponder on, because it's no more is the idea that I can just go, oh, well, I'll just go and do this prepaid tuition plan, or, oh, I'll just go do this 529 plan, because that's what makes sense, because that's what's always made sense. Well, maybe it doesn't. I even asked this about my two children. You know, I have two children that are totally opposites. I have one that I'm pretty sure we're dealing with a serial entrepreneur. I'm not joking, between how many snow cone stands and comic book sales and all kinds of stuff that we've got going on there. And then our other little guy is fascinated with equipment. You know, I wouldn't past him that he's going to run a crane someday. So you just never know what your kids are going to be. So how do we plan for that, right? How do you plan for your grandkids? And you want to start putting back money, because you know that time value of money is so important. Obviously, if you don't know that, we need to back up a bit, because it is important. It's like, you know, I think Albert Einstein had a quote about that, something that is like this magical equation, right? Because the longer your money's sitting there working for you, working for itself, it accumulates. And it's really, really powerful. So the earlier you can start with a child, the better off they're going to be, but you have no idea what that child is going to do. And to add to that, we have no idea what this educational roadmap is going to look like even for a normal situation. I mean, yeah, okay, my son wants to be a surgeon or my daughter wants to be an attorney. That's pretty easy to see that educational map. Now, where they're going to go to school, in-state, out-of-state, all those things still matter, but it's a little bit easier. But what does that roadmap look like when your child is young and they're or just not even certain what they want to do? Heck, I have a soon-to-be nephew-in-law that just graduated. He still doesn't know what he wants to do. This is common. Traditional higher education has shifted to, the standardized education. And, then you're still needing more training, or trade schools, alternative routes are being created. And who knows if we're sitting here 10, 15 years away from when that education is needed. So I think the biggest thing is that there is a key ingredient here that is needed for any type of planning, and that's called flexibility. Capitals, 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 flexibility. So that's what I want to talk about today. Let's look at some of these different funding methods for education, college, higher education, whatever. And let's look at the flexibility of each right here on Life Planning 101 when we come back. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. This is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. We are talking about the best vehicle to save for higher education, college, trade schools, whatever that is. Ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus stated, "There is nothing permanent except change." Funny thing is, thousands of years later, this still rings true. So you got this young person, where do you put this money? How does this work? And if you missed the first segment of the show, I actually would go back and listen to that just because we did talk about that need for flexibility. And so we're going to go through some different plans here and see what these actually look like. The number one I want to do is called prepaid tuition plans. And I mean, there's a huge benefit to this. They are what they say. You are literally prepaying tuition, and you have the ability to lock in education costs in today's dollars and protect against that rising cost of education going forward. And historically, these have been extremely beneficial because if you took inflation and you took the higher education inflation, it was always about double up till here recently on what that looked like. Huge benefit, but very important to understand the limitations of flexibility with these plans. Okay, first of all, they could be state plans, they could be private plans. You know the old saying that we talk about all the time, big print giveth, little print taketh away. You definitely need to read the little print because you can, there's a lot of things you can do. You can transfer the plan to family members. Most cases, you're limited to the in-state or the private institution with whom you purchased the plan from. So if you actually go outside of that, so say your kid wants to go to in-state tuition, but they want to go to a private school, then you may be covering the cost of the difference between those plans. Or if they want to go out of state, then you could be covering that cost, right? You're limited to paying just tuition and mandatory fees. So these don't cover like your room, your board, supplies, all that. And if no one uses it, most of the plans, you can transfer them to family members, like I said, but most of the plans provide some sort of refund. Okay, this is where that little print is really important because if you bought one today for the next 18 years and it's only going to pay you back your principal, that's a lot of loss in a time value of money, right? So make sure you understand the risk, but they can be very beneficial, especially if you got someone saying, "I'm going to be a surgeon." Right? Or you have 6 kids, likely one's going to go to college. That might be a case for it. So it's definitely worth considering. Second thing I want to talk about. So 529 plans. Unlike, and I should say this because I did miss this. So prepaid tuitions. Let me back up for just a second. Let's talk about financial aid as we're going through this because this is a prospect for a lot of people. So especially a grandparent, if you're looking at your kids and wanting to help them out. So if you pay a prepaid tuition plan, it actually reduces financial aid dollar for dollar. It can because it's considered a direct resource. So in my opinion, it's probably the worst financial aid complement, so to speak. Now, 529 plans, now unlike the prepaid tuition plans, they actually are pretty friendly when it gets to financial aid eligibility. So if the 529 plan is held in a grandparent's name, it's not going to have any impact on their financial aid. That's pretty cool. You can also design it so if it's in the parent's name and then, a couple years down the road, parent's name, it'll come out, it'll show as income. I think the asset isn't included. I'd have to look up the rules, but I think the asset's not included, but the income is. And so you would use it in the later years of higher education as not to distort the financial aid in the early years of education. So you can kind of be flexible with those things. And that's where you need to get help on, what to do here. But there's a lot of other benefits to a 529 plan too, especially after the expansions that were made during the Secure Act. Okay, so number one thing about a 529 plan, so you put the money in there, and there are some limitations on how much you can put in because it is gifting, but you put the money in there, it's going to grow tax deferred, and then you're going to have limited investment choices that you could put in based on which plan you want to go into. And by the way, state of Texas has a plan, state of Arizona has a plan, state of Illinois has a plan, state of Kansas has a plan. Just because you live in Texas doesn't mean you have to use Texas's plan. You can use the investment company that you like to use. That's how we look at them. Okay, so you can move the plans around. It's not state specific. But it might be if you're in a state that provides income tax benefits as well, because when you put in the contribution there, potentially you could get a tax deduction, you could get a tax credit. For example, in Indiana, there's a 20% credit on up to $5,000 of contribution. So that's $1,000 in tax savings potentially. That's really good. But then once the money's in there, they grow tax deferred. And, when you take the money out, if you're using it for qualified higher education expenses and a few other things, then it comes out without tax or penalty. So talking about Secure Act, they actually expanded those benefits where you can use them for more things than just traditional tuition. They can be used for a host of qualifying expenses like your room and board, your equipment that you need, all of those things. You can use up to $10,000 per year out of the plan for K through 12 tuition. So maybe private school might be in the future for a high school student or something, might be really important. And that's when you can use that. You could use up to $10,000 to pay student loans for the beneficiary themselves or one of their siblings. That's pretty cool. You can actually roll up to $35,000 to a Roth IRA. Now, this is over time, and there's some limitations. In fact, the rules are really weird and really complicated, but you can do it. So you can roll up to $35,000 to a Roth IRA, and a Roth IRA is after tax and potentially grows tax-free, and they can come out tax-free. Wow, it's a retirement vehicle, so that could be really good. And then, you can use these for any higher education school in the state, is an increasing number of trade schools and alike. You can transfer it. So let's say that your one kid doesn't use it. You can actually transfer it to another sibling, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, daughter-in-law, a stepdad. I mean, the list is very vast. In fact, if you need that list, we can send you a link for that. Just request it. Because it's very flexible in that way. So 529 plans have come a long way as a great vehicle, because here just a few years ago before the Secure Act, we're like, yeah. And here's what I will say, okay? So a lot of times we don't recommend just doing one size fits all and one plan fits all. A lot of times you take different strategies and you kind of commingle and put them together. So when we come back from the break, I'm going to give you one that you're not even going to think about. I don't even think that would be a possibility to fund education, but it actually works very complementary to some other funding methods. So you're not going to miss it right here when we come back on Life Planning 101. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services here in Eastland, Texas. And we are talking about the best vehicle to save for college and education. We've talked about prepaid tuition plans. We've talked about 529 plans. Now, I want to throw in some little strategy. And like I said before the break, I mean, sometimes we see it as a benefit to kind of mix and match these strategies together for some people. And this is one of those tools that you would throw in there. And that's using a Roth IRA or a kiddie Roth IRA. That means opening a Roth IRA for a minor. Okay, so the contributions to a Roth IRA are limited in comparison to what you could put in a prepaid tuition plan or a 529 plan. In 2024, you could put $6,500 maximum into a Roth IRA if you're under age 50. So there's not much you can put in there. And you have to have, quote unquote, earned income to be able to contribute. So your kid has to be working. If you're a business owner, most likely they're doing some work for you. You just need to pay them. That's important. So it's important to talk to your tax advisor about this and make sure that you're on the same page. But this could be really good. And again, this may not be the sole savings vehicle for a number of reasons I'm about to mention, but it shouldn't be ignored, okay? Because a Roth IRA is after tax money, so you've paid tax on the money. If you're paying your kid, by the way, as a business owner and you're a sole proprietor, you get a write-off. If your kid is below the standard deduction limit on their income, they don't pay income tax, and then they could put that into the kiddie Roth IRA. So that is literally money that could never be taxed, and then it could grow tax-free and potentially come out tax-free. If they save that till retirement, just think of the time value of money. Woohoo! That's exciting, okay? So like that mentions, the Roth IRA is really a retirement tool. But you can use the funds for qualified higher education expenses, much like a 529, without penalty if you've made the first contributions to that over 5 years ago. And at this point, when you start taking out for qualified education, you actually take out your contributions that you put in first. And then if you did any conversions, Roth conversions from an IRA, they would come out next. And all that comes out tax-free. Okay, then you have the earnings that come out next. And they're not penalized, but they could be taxable if you're under 59 and a half. Now, there are obviously some deductions and tax credits to potentially offset these. And not to mention, if your kid owns it, they may not have other income and there may be very little coming out, so they wouldn't have taxes anyway. However, you may want to look at this as like a partial funding strategy, leave the earnings in there for later, and do something else with them. Because, for example, you could then turn around and use up to $10,000 for a first-time home purchase with zero penalty and tax. Or you could use them in the traditional way. That's a thought. Provide tax-free income in retirement, right? The other thing is, with financial aid, a Roth account balance doesn't work against you. The distributions could work against you. So again, kind of like the 529 plan, you might want to look at using it in later years to actually be more beneficial. Whew, this is a lot, but it's really good. So prepaid tuition plans, 529 plans, Roth IRAs and kiddie Roth IRAs. Now let's talk about another surprise, life insurance. So this one is probably the most financial aid friendly. Life insurance cash value doesn't have to be reported on a FAFSA at all, and anything you're taking out, if done in the right way, won't be reported either. So that's powerful in itself. Now, here's how it works. So this would be, I wouldn't call it overfunding a life insurance policy, but definitely maximally funding a life insurance policy with cash. You're putting as much cash into that policy as you can. And when you get ready to take out the money, you take out your premiums, what you put in first, and that's a return of premium is how that's considered. And then the earnings, you wouldn't take a withdrawal and you wouldn't surrender the policy in the example that we're talking about here. You would take a loan against your policy. Well, you don't pay income tax on a loan, right? You could actually end up paying that off later on, or if you design the policy correctly, then potentially never paying it off, and it just reduces down your death benefit. And oh, by the way, that death benefit, if you were to die before you got that education fully funded, you just did it, right? If the insurance was on you. Now, the other cool thing is that you have to think about this. There is absolutely no limitations on what the money can be used for. The downside, you have to pay for the cost of insurance and you have to pay for the interest on the loans. Could not be beneficial. Definitely worth looking at. So here's what I'd say. Buyer beware, because this is a complex strategy and it should not be implemented with just anyone or just any insurance company, because expertise and quality are absolutely key. I'll repeat that. Expertise and quality are absolutely key. The other key to this is it's going to require ongoing management. So here's the thing. If you default on a loan that you have on your life insurance policy, your entire death benefit could be taxable. You heard that. So the door-to-door salesman that may or may not be around when you need them isn't the person to help you with this strategy. This is an advanced strategy. In fact, all of this is because there's a lot of ins and outs. And so just trying to figure out what's the best thing, because here we didn't even cover scholarships, UTMAs, Coverdell's. There's a few others, right? And I think the big thing here is don't do the job alone. Saving for higher education is complicated, but really your job is simple if you're working well with us. Because here's what you need to know is, number one, what is the money for? Define that. Number two, what are the most important issues the money needs to address? Number three, when do you need the flexibility? And number four, how much do you want to save? So if you can start there, you can help us answer that. Then we could try to figure out something. Obviously, we're going to have to look at everything all together, your holistic situation. But you could start there and then you call us and we can help you figure it out, because this is very complicated. Unfortunately, it's not just put a little bit of money back. You can, but you could probably get a lot more bang for your buck using one of the strategies we talked about today. There are just limitations that you need to know. My name is Angela Robinson with Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. Man, we love doing this show, Life Planning 101. Our whole goal is to help people live life on purpose, and we truly believe education is a foundational piece to that. If the more you know, the more wise you can make of your decisions, the more that empowers you just to live life on purpose. So that's exactly what we're doing each and every week. We are blessed to be able to bring this show to you. We hope that it is a blessing for you. So be sure to join us again right here next week on Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax, bookkeeping, and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.